What's up, Internet? You're tuned into episode 95 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete Messi, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. We got another very special episode here. Of course, this is now our fourth episode of the show in the span of 2 weeks because, of course, it is Summer Game Fest, and this is our, at least for now, our last Summer Game Fest episode where we are going to cover all of our favorite announcements from all of the shows that we weren't able to live stream and live react to along with you guys, the community.
Yeah, I have, as Sean said on YouTube in comments, I've got my tea and I've got my soda stream ready to go. So I'm very British, and we've got some stuff to talk about today. And I'm sure next week, if there is a bunch of like Yakuza or I guess like a Dragon news from the RGG thing, I'm sure you can rope someone in to help you with that episode.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think that's the last event we've got of the week.
Yeah, of the week anyway. There is there's one more that they threw on the calendar for later in June. And I think it's the Annapurna event is like on the 29th, I want to
Yeah,
say, right? Is that right? Is that
yeah, I
right?
think you're
June
right.
29th,
Yeah.
I'm correct. So, I'm sure we'll be back to cover that. But, today we're going to be doing roundups from Day of the Devs, Devolver Digital, Wholesome Direct, the PC Gaming Show, Ubisoft Forward, Capcom Showcase, and then the Xbox Game Showcase Extended. So we got a lot to break down for you guys today. So we're going to just jump right into it with Day of the Devs. The first game that I wanted to talk about, Steve, was a little game called Beastie Balls, or Beastie Ball, excuse me. So this is
It
the
sounds like it should be Beastie Balls because of the Beastie Boys. So
yeah, I guess that's probably where my mind went, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Um, it's an indie game, so I'm sure the licensing on that's a little rough, but I could have done with a Beastie Boys song in here. But this is the team behind Chicory and Wander Song. So obviously,
Mm.
a team with a lot of pedigree. And it's a really interesting pitch for a game, I think. One that definitely speaks to uh my sensibilities, right? Where it's a game where you play a coach of a Beastie Ball team, and you have to go and recruit all these monsters around this like island that you live on, to make a Beastie Ball team. And it like is this turn-based volleyball RPG type game. And there's like a social sim element where like there's the more you use monsters together, they'll form relationships and they'll become friends, or they'll become rivals, or maybe they'll become romantic partners. And then like those interactions like between species unlock new abilities and new powers. And it's right up my alley for sure. It's got a really cute art style too. Good creature design, like a real hand drawn kind of feel. Definitely one that caught my eye right away.
Yeah, I thought it looked really cool. And yeah, I actually interviewed Greg when we were over at Lootpots when he was working on Wonder Song and had announced Chicory as Draw Dog. So it's really cool to see him, continuing to go from strength to strength with this game. I think it looks really great. And the
You should
music
reach
was really
out.
like absolutely kicking. Like, it was really good music. Which yeah, I think you put the Lena Rain did it down. So I
Yeah.
think that probably explains that.
Yeah, they I didn't know. I don't know if Lena's a member of this studio now, or if she's just been commissioned
She
for the game.
from
But
when I was talking to Gray, I think he said they're like close friends. He was close friends with the team behind Celeste. And so I think that's how he met Lena, and Lena did the music for Chicory, and I guess she's coming back for Beastie Ball.
yeah, when she showed up, I was like, oh yes, let's go. Like I was already in on the concept and the art, and it's like, oh, okay, now the soundtrack's gonna be incredible because Lena pretty much only turns out absolute slappers. So yeah, I feel like stem to stern, this is a game that like has a lot of personality, a lot of vibe that I connect with, and definitely one that I want to check out for sure.
Yeah, I like the look of it. My only concern was it was a Kickstarter, which I think they announced at the Wholesome Direct, because this was also at the Wholesome Direct. But it's pretty much been fulfilled already. It's got 26 days to go. They were only asking for 53,000 pounds, which was 90,000 Canadian. And they've pretty much reached it already. There are 51,000 of 53,000. So um, no real concerns that this is going to get funded. It was interesting they went down this route, though. I know with Chicory, I think they had a publisher, and I know that they made it exclusive to PlayStation for a year. So I would imagine they got some funding from Sony for that one.
Yeah.
So it looks like
This
this
is
one is potentially being like self-funded through Kickstarter,
Yeah, I would
which is always
imagine
a
this
nice
is
route.
their kind of attempt to avoid that, to avoid having to, partner with a publisher and, potentially, having to make a concession like having it be temporarily exclusive or maybe not holding on to the IP or, any of the things that can happen when you partner with a publisher versus when you self-release and you get to, keep all that money for yourself. And now that they are a team that has multiple hits under their belt, right? Chicory was a game that got a lot of attention when it dropped. And obviously, as you said, you were interested in Wander Song when they were a newer team, right? So I think they've got chops now, right? And it's the kind of thing where you're like, you see this and the Kickstarter, normally I'm with you where like I have a little more hesitation with a Kickstarter game because it's like, is it going to come together? How long is it going to take? Whatever, whatever. But when it's a team like this, or like with like Mina the Hollower, right? With like Yacht Club, the team behind Shovel Knight, it's like, well, you know, I'm pretty confident you guys can ship a really high quality game at this point, so I don't necessarily have that same concern.
Yeah, I think for some of those kind of teams, it gets to a point where maybe this is like a marketing way to market it, way to get it out, way to get fans involved, get people in and really backing it, rather than we need this money in order to make this game. I mean, Beastie Ball looks like it's pretty far along anyway from what they showed in the
Yeah, right.
presentation.
It looks pretty complete.
Yeah, it's not like this is a concept and we need the money in order to make it. It looks like it's pretty much there.
Yeah, so it's like when you have all that going for you, I feel like to your point, the Kickstarter feels like more of a marketing tool, and also, right, it makes it so that you can self-publish and you can hopefully retain a bigger cut of the profits and reinvest in the studio, right? And grow the team and invest more money in the next project. So
Yeah,
it's great. I'm really, really excited for this one. I'm gonna go back it on Kickstarter for sure.
awesome.
Uh, the next one we're gonna look at is another one of my picks. This one was called Simpler Times. It very much reminded me of kind of like a cross between Unpacking and like Life is Strange, or like, a more like kind of experiential like narrative game like that. Because you play this woman who is moving out of her childhood home, and like as you're packing everything, she's like interacting with the objects and like it's triggering memories, and there's like voice dialogue of her kind of being like, oh, I've looked out this window so many times, it's crazy. I'm not gonna look at it out it again for a really long time, right? Or like she pulls a poster down and then there's like drawings on the wall that she did when she was like a little kid, and things like that, that are kind of having that experiential storytelling through exploring the space, but there is still like a clear narrative and dialogue and some things that you don't always necessarily get in that type of experience, like Unpacking, right?
I think it reminded me most of What Remains of Edith Finch because there's four seasons and four like records that they've spoken about in the description of the game, and there's like these four memories that you go back to, which is very much like What Remains of Edith Finch. Each of the rooms that you went around in the house in order to get into them, you had to solve these puzzles by going into the memories and exploring who lived in that room at that time. And it looks like this is focused around the windows in her room and the records that she puts on and looking out the window and seeing the different seasons and going back to like a time when she was a child because it takes place over 10 years. So it looked like an interesting game. I'm interested in this one. I've wish listed it over on Steam.
Yeah, I'm always for something that wants to tell a narrative in kind of a different way. Obviously that's kind of one of the really cool things about games is being able to like have a space be a part of a story in a way that it's not in other mediums that are not experiential. So it's anything like this is always interesting to me, and I love a narrative about small things. Like I think it's so cool to tell a personal story through someone's bedroom and their personal items and, kind of like the things that you accumulate over the course of a life, right? And all the stories attached
Yeah.
to them.
There's been a few of those like this. Window Garden in the Wholesome Direct was another one that I wanted to highlight. I'll just bounce over to that one because this and Simpler Times and Window Garden reminded me of this book I had when I was a kid, and it's just called Window, and it was just illustrations looking out of this window and how like the landscape changed, and like it was initially like a nice countryside out there, and then they built like a parking lot across the road, and you like see everything developing in
Yeah.
the background, and it's like a bit of a narrative on that. And this Simpler Times kind of gave me that vibe of like, oh, I can look out the window and see how kind of things have changed over the course of a lifetime because things don't stay the same. Things constantly are progressing.
Yeah, I love that. I love a game trying to take on a narrative like that that is a little smaller and more intimate and more personal, but very much like leaning into the strengths of the medium and doing something that like you couldn't necessarily do in a book or a film, or if you did it wouldn't be the same, right? Because a director or the writer is guiding your experience rather than you having that journey yourself, and kind of
Mhm.
really feeling in the shoes of the character. So yeah,
These are actually the kind of
definitely interesting.
these are actually these are actually the kind of things I feel like would work in VR. This is the kind of experience, like a
Yeah.
60-minute, I'm this person, I'm looking and interacting with all of their items in their room. I'm really kind of in their shoes and feeling who they are and in that moment. And then after the 60 minutes is over and I've finished the game, I can take my headset off and wipe the sweat away from my face and kind of go on about my day. Those are the kind of experiences I think VR would be really successful with.
Yeah, there's that game, I think it's called Before Your Eyes or whatever, and it's like it's a Netflix game, and you originally played it with a webcam. It just got a VR release on PSVR 2, and a lot of
Oh,
people
that's
have
cool.
talked about that and how the game itself is excellent, but when you add the VR to it, there is that sense of a deeper immersion, right? And really feeling like you're there in the moment, as that character, which definitely something that I could see being interesting. And it's
Mhm.
different, right? You're not focused on combat and the same couple things that we've seen in VR games.
Yeah, the 3 genres that you spoke about last week, I think it was.
Yeah. So then the next one is interesting because it's an older game, but it's a re-release of a game that hasn't been available for a while. One I hadn't heard of, but has a pretty interesting story behind it. It's called Cart Life, and it is a game that was originally released in 2013 by Richard Hoffmeyer, and it won a ton of indie awards and got a bunch of attention, and then was made unavailable for a number of years. And now it's finally going to be playable again. There's going to be some new content, and it's pretty interesting. It's a game where there are three different playable characters that you can choose from, and each one is a street vendor, and they each have like a different background. Like one is like a recently divorced single mother who's like moving back into her childhood home. One of them is a recent immigrant from, I believe, the Ukraine, who's like looking to set down roots in a new country. And then the third guy is like, I think he was described as like a dreamer, a big dreamer who never has any money and is like trying to
Oh,
start this business.
when he was described as a dreamer, I thought he was like, the dreamer kids in America, but I guess maybe that's not the case.
His name was Vinny, so I kind of got the impression that he was like maybe like a wheeler and dealer type of guy.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right about that.
Um so and it's got like a really, it's black and white, kind of
It it
monochrome
it looks
pixel
like
art
Papers,
style.
Please.
Sure, 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 sure. Yeah, definitely has that vibe to it.
When I saw it, I thought, "Oh shit, is this from the people behind Papers, Please? Has Lucas Pope been working on something new?" But no, but I guess it's a really old game that they're kind of re-releasing, which is really cool. I've never played this, never heard of it, and I saw it and it looks so fresh.
I
There's no
know.
way if you told me this released 10 years ago, I would believe you, especially considering it's like really on point as well with like the story of the Ukrainian immigrant coming to the US and kind of having their life
It
upturned
feels
and
timely,
having
yeah.
to yeah, it's like really in the moment. And I can't wait to play this. It looks phenomenal.
And the thing that really caught my attention about it too is it is like very much like a role playing type experience, right? Where like they said that they specifically said that there's no wrong way to play, right? And it's just like you have a set amount of time and you make choices, and the choices you make impact the story. And like some of the ways that they showed that was like it seems like, do you sacrifice your character's mental health to try to benefit the business, or like it looked like maybe
Never
you
the
can
choice.
turn one of the characters into an alcoholic, things like that, and it's very interesting to kind of not only, see. I think if there was one story I'd be interested in this game, the fact that there's three and that each one has kind of its own stakes and its own unique outcome. It seems like it's a game that's gonna have a ton of replayability.
Yeah, I really can't wait. Even just as soon as I saw the visual style and the gameplay and like the fact that there is the three stories, I was so on board with it.
Yeah, yeah, this is one that, like, really, really stood out, and, they did do a little bit of a kind of, like, I think, side by side of what the old version looked like versus the new one, and it does look like the style's been freshened up a little bit with the lighting and some of that stuff, which is probably leading to why we feel like it feels as modern as it does, which is great to see. But, yeah, shout out to Ad Hoc Studio, who's the team who's, partnered with, the original creator, Richard, Hoffmeyer to, get it done here, because it looks really good. And, considering it's a game that apparently was so well received back then and neither of us was ever able to play it, I'm pretty excited to get a chance.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I wanted to call out was Hellskate, which is a roguelite skateboarding game with some supernatural kind of trappings, right? They described it as a fast-paced skateboarding hack and slash. I think this game looks extremely sick. It feels very, very, I mean, stylistically reminiscent of when you're talking about like the skateboarding gameplay. You definitely get a sense of like the Tony Hawk influence, and they even talked about how one of the lead designers was a developer on Tony Hawk's Underground, which, as you all know, is my favorite Tony
It's
Hawk
your
game.
favorite.
And he
I
talked,
actually think it's got like Sunset Overdrive vibes as well when he's skating around and grinding and just like
sure.
smashing people's heads off and stuff.
I feel like it reminds me a lot of Roller Drome too, like the mixture of like the action sports with the hack and slash, kind of vibe. Definitely feels like that.
Yeah, very fast paced. It's really cool.
And, it even has, like, a Hades thing to it, right? Obviously, it's a roguelike, but also I think, like, the little, like, story, like, kinda cutscene interactions that they were showing off definitely had a bit of a Hades vibe to it for me as well.
Are they as hot as the people in Hades, would you say?
Some of them are pretty hot, yeah. I think it's
Well,
pretty
yeah.
good. And then they talked about, how and I forget the gentleman's name, but the guy who had worked on Underground was talking about how they were really they thought what they were doing there with like story and creating like an RPG in Underground was something that was really cool. But there was obviously the limitations of like real life and the professional skateboarders that are the cast of characters in that game and everything. So with this, they kind of wanted to do something a little bit different, and that's like kind of why you have this cool fantastical environment with like angels and demons and everything. And yeah, I mean, I think it looks really, really cool. And I think it's gonna have the feel of a Tony Hawk game, which is like when it comes to skateboarding, like there is no when it comes to the arcadey style anyway, right? No disrespect to the people that like skate. Um, that's unmatched. So the feel of the skateboarding, I think you can probably already take to the bank is gonna feel good, which is the biggest question mark for me, right? All the other stuff, is like new and novel, and I hope it comes together, but it definitely seems like a super interesting idea.
Are you gonna pick this one up? Because it's going into early access, and they think version 1.0 is gonna come in next year. They say the current state of the early access is World 1 of 3 is playable with the one
Nice.
character we saw in the video.
Cool. I mean, I'll definitely pick it up. I don't know if I'll go out of my way to play it in early access or if I'll wait for 1.0, but
That's what I like to do. I usually wait for 1.0 unless it's something I'm really kind of hungry for. I think with Hades 2, depending on where that drops this year, that might be the first game I ever jump on for early access.
Yeah, I always worry that if I play a game in early access, I'm gonna kinda get my fill of it when it's underdeveloped, and then by the time it hits 1.0, it's gonna be a bunch of content that I've already experienced, and I'm not gonna, I just don't wanna spoil myself on the 1.0 release by jumping into early access, unless it's like a multiplayer thing or something where I'm gonna be doing it over and over and over again anyway. So I don't know, we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, makes sense.
But definitely one that I plan on jumping into, at launch for sure. So, jumping over to the Devolver Digital presentation, you wanted to talk a bit about Talos Principle 2. I know you're a big environmental puzzle fan.
Yeah, before I do, like, you didn't get a chance to watch this presentation. I implore everyone to go watch it. It was the funniest Devolver Digital and present any presentation I've seen in a very long time. I thought it was hilarious. I recommend everyone go and watch it. They didn't have much to show in terms of games. Talos Principle 2 is the one I was most excited about. So we saw the reveal of it over at the PlayStation event a couple of weeks ago, but that was just a teaser trailer. And at the Devolver Showcase, we got to see some gameplay. And wow, they showed a fair chunk. Coming from the original Talos Principle, there's the things we know and love with the laser beams and, like, the things that look like they do for surveying, and the people that you can basically you take control of them and make them do things, and they'll repeat what you did. But there's also whole new things, like, there's these Tetris blocks, and you can make them move on the floor. There's this, like, it looks like a gun that can make bridges, so you can then go up to a higher level and, like, go across the bridge. There's whole new they've added whole new things into this that I did not expect. I thought we were probably gonna get maybe one new mechanic, but wow, they've really gone to town. There's whole new areas, there's new, like, ways to traverse. I'm really excited for this game. I loved the Talos Principle. Thought it was such a clever game, one of the best environmental puzzlers ever made, and I'm really happy that we're getting Talos Principle 2, and it's coming out in 2023. God knows when that's going to be and where I'm going to fit it in. This is probably going to be one that ends up slipping into next year, and it's such a shame because I know in any other year I would be like jumping on this immediately, and it probably would make it on my game of the year list.
There's just too many games right now, and it's like anytime when a new game comes out and it's like, "Oh, we're coming out this year," it's like, "Oh, don't though." Like just delay, please. And it's like we're talking about how next year's already stacking up, so, that comes with its own troubles. Like you got to come out sometime, right? But
Yeah, I know. It's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me how much is coming out in the next 6 months. We're 6 months into the year, and there's still so many games that don't have definitive release dates that are just 2023.
yeah, you got to imagine a lot of them are going to slip, but especially now, right? Where it's like so many games have staked their claims in the back half of the year. And it's like, do we really want to come out? Do we want to come out against Starfield after that presentation? Do
Yeah,
we want to come out against Spider-Man 2? Do we want to come out
yeah,
against, the myriad of other games that are coming? Be here for another 5 minutes rattling off what this fall looks like, right? Let alone
I
the
know, and that's
games.
just AAA. Like, even considering the indie stuff that's been announced. I mean, over at the
Mhm.
Wholesome Direct, we saw Sticky Business, which I think both of us like the look of. As I was
Yeah.
putting in the doc, you're like, I'm literally watching this trailer right now. I thought this
Yeah.
looked so good, so charming. I love the fact that you can be creative without having to draw. And that's always my concern with this kind of game. So in this game, you run your own sticker business, and you can build your own creations and sell them online, and you kind of grow your business and upgrade your shop, and eventually kind of grow your fan base and basically run an art business. But you don't need to draw. You get, like, essentially, I guess, what in my our generation would be considered clip art, and you piece all these bits of beautiful pixel art clip art together, and you can change their colors and interchange them and put them together to create your own stickers, and then put them up on your shop and see how people react to them, and you have to figure out pricing. And it just looks so creative. It looks so cool. This is like the kind of game that I could really get lost in for hours, just having a really good time with it. It's also the kind of game I would actually really love to come to mobile, which is very few and far between for me. Like, this feels like a game that would really work on mobile. Like, I can drag and drop with my finger, the stickers and stuff, and just, like, play it in bed at night and just check how my business is doing, check
Yeah,
how my stickers have been selling, that kind of thing.
for sure. I could definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's got a really good style to it. I really like the pixel art aesthetic, and I think like similar to something like unpacking. Like I could see this being a really just like a nice chill game to play on like a Sunday morning kind of thing. Just really really nice vibe to it. So the next one is a game that feels extremely tailored to my interests. It is called Moonstone Island. It was described as a creature collecting life simulator, and it has like a Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon esque like farming system, but then there's also a card based combat system that is where like the monsters come in. So it's like a mixture of all the stuff I like about Harvest Moon and, like uh deck building games with like monster collecting stuff like Pokemon and then of course there's also like the life sim element of it where like
Which
there's a
which they've
whole
turned into an RPG. Like, there's you can talk to
yeah,
people, and you can either chat with them, joke with them, or flirt with them, and all of those had, like, chances of
percentage
success.
chances and yeah. And I'm just like, this is just it's just combining so many things I like together, and I can see how that loop would be so satisfying of like do a little of the life sim stuff, do a little of the battle stuff, do a little of the farming stuff, and chip away at it like that. Yeah, this is very very cool. I'm very excited for this one, and it's coming to Steam Next Fest later on in June. So I think I might kick the tires on it then just to see if it feels as good as I think it does, and make cement if it's a game I'm excited for, or if it's a cool idea that maybe doesn't vibe with me.
I think it's got legs, and this isn't the first time we've seen it. The new big thing here that they announced was the collaboration with Terraria, and that they had a little sneak peek where one of the slimes from Terraria made it into the end clip on the
Oh, I didn't
trailer.
realize that's what that
Pretty
was.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, so they're gonna show more on the collaboration with Terraria, at a later date.
Cool. So then the next one was yours. You wanted to talk about a star named EOS.
It's a star named Eos.
EOS.
It was a
Okay.
pretty it looked like a pretty cool idea and concept for a game. You basically have to solve puzzles with a camera, and you go around, taking photos and things and kind of placing them and solving the puzzles. I need to see more on it. I thought it looked really good, um, and I'm so curious about the name as to where that comes in. Like, where is the star? Like, how does that kind of factor into the story? But I like the look of it. This was one of the other ones that really stood out to me in the Wholesome Direct, along with that Window Garden game that we already spoke about.
Yeah, this one I thought was really cute too. Again, I like the kind of experiential storytelling and like the, like telling through objects and stuff like that and taking a picture and then the character like associate telling us what the memories associated with it is, right? Like one of the examples in the trailer was like a picture of this school project and it was like reminiscing on how like the teacher and their mother, you know, um had given them praise for it or whatever, right? Like little things like that. So it's definitely interesting. The last one from the Wholesome Direct that we're going to touch on is Fields of Mystria, which is
Yeah, this
a
was huge. This was their one more thing. Like, everyone, they did the fake out in the
yeah,
presentation. We all thought it was over. And it's like, oh, we got one more game.
yeah, and this one's very interesting. I think it's the aesthetic and everything. I like it on its face, but the I won't bury the lead. The music is by Toby Fox of Undertale, Deltarune fame. And as I think anybody who's been listening to us for a while knows, Toby is one of my favorite artists of all time. Period. Right. So like, if he's composing for a thing, that immediately makes me want to sit up and pay attention because I love his music so much. Um, but I think aside from that, like it's got a good look and a good feel to it, right? Like the art style of like the main graphic and everything is very reminiscent of like 90s era anime, and then it's
Yeah,
got
it's clearly inspired by Sailor Moon, like 100%
yeah, yeah, and
inspired
then
by
like
Sailor Moon.
the pixel art of like the main section, feels very reminiscent of like Super Nintendo era pixel art, but kind of elevated a little
Gorgeous.
bit.
Yeah, it's like, what if Super Nintendo pixel art was even more high fidelity and cutesy? Oh god, it's gorgeous. I love it. I loved the look of this game. I love the focus on dating, which I really enjoyed in Stardew Valley. I loved the romance and talking to people, but the fact that the focus really seems to be on that in this
That
game,
always
this
felt
like
like it was
twelve
like a very
people.
backdrop thing, whereas
It's like
this
tacked
feels
on, right? Yeah.
yeah, whereas in this it feels like a lot more of like a central part of the uh gameplay almost, right? Because they even highlight that there's 12 specific characters that you can romance. So like I'm imagining having a smaller number has let them like flesh those stories out a little bit more.
I hope so, and I'm glad this one's coming next year. I thought it looked fantastic. I'd really want them to kind of go to town on it. I think you're right that music is by Toby Fox, but I don't know if he's doing all of it. I think it may have just been the music that's highlighted in the trailer. They specifically said trailer guest music by Toby Fox, but I would imagine
That's all
he's
they
got
gotta do. That's all they
some
gotta do. They just tell me that Toby wrote a song for it. I'm like, hey, it must be pretty good if he's signing off on it.
Yeah, fair point.
That's all I need. That's all I need. So yeah, I'm you know, for as many of these games as we've seen lately, this is the first one in a while where I'm like, okay, all right, I could get into this one.
Yeah, I think that's for me. Not no single one has kind of usurped Stardew Valley. I just want to go back to Stardew Valley all the time, especially while Eric Brown is still putting content into Stardew Valley. Like
Yeah.
we had that huge new update like a few months ago, which got me back into it. And oh my god, like if he continues to do that, and he said he's taking a break from working on the Haunted Chocolatier, I don't know that any game ever will will surpass it, at least for me. But I'm willing to give more and more of them a try.
Yeah, I mean, if this one is like smaller in scale, right? And it is like I'll come in and do the romance and like I play it for a certain amount of time and then I kind of see what it's had to offer, then like that's cool, you know?
Yeah, and then I finished it, and I can walk away,
Mhm.
which I never could with Stardew Valley.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, between that and the the Moonstone Island, I think I'm going to be pretty set on that type of game for a while.
Mhm.
So jumping over to the PC gaming show, we wanted to start things off with Nivalis, which is a game we've seen a few times, I wanna say. This was, I think,
This
the
is
second
this is the
major
first time,
trailer.
like yeah, this is the first time I've been properly like, "Oh, I'm kinda getting it now." Like, I really like the look of this. I like the fact that I love the world. It really feels to me like I'm walking around the Blade Runner universe, and, like, I'm in there, and that's what I wanted from Cyberpunk, and if I can get it from Nivalis, and I'm also kind of really immersed in it because 'cause I'm here building out shops, building out restaurants, I'm, sorting out my apartment, I'm having a relationship, all of that stuff I'm, like, really immersed in the world for, then I'll be all in on it. I think it looks so good.
Yeah, that was something I was surprised by. I mean, I don't know that if they said it was an immersive life sim last time because I remember when they showed it off, they talked about the serial killer and the murder mystery. And I was kind of getting the sense that it was going to be like a noir thing, but then they're showing this and it's like, no, yeah, like there's like the direct quote here is grow your business, manage restaurants and nightclubs, make friends and enemies, buy and decorate apartments, go fishing, and maybe even find love in Nivalis, the city that stretches from the ocean to the clouds. So it really seems like there's so much depth to the world and what you're able to do in it, and that it's not uh maybe as linear as I initially thought.
Yeah, I don't think it's linear at all. So apparently you start small with a food stall, and then you can grow up to a noodle stand and then a shop, and then you can get a bar and a restaurant or a nightclub. And then eventually the goal is to own everything in Novalis, and you become like the person that's really operating everything. But there is things to deal with alongside that, like there's realistic weather simulation, day-night cycles, and then there's the kind of crime element that you spoke about with that kind of murder mystery subplot. I think it's a really interesting game, and
And then
I think it looks visually stunning.
yeah, and it has like a pretty detailed like character interaction system, right? Where like you can have like friendly relationships, you can, become yeah, it's I don't know, there's a lot here. There's a lot going on, and it seems a lot deeper than what I think I was expecting from it. And I already thought it looked interesting and cool. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean I'm only more interested in it now.
Yeah, me too.
So then we got a a dev diary for Baldur's Gate 3 that got into some of the specifics around the city. They called it the city reveal. And yeah, I didn't really get to dig into this too much, Steve. So give me the context on this one.
They really just spoke at length of kind of how the city comes together and how they made it kind of feel like a living, breathing space, and the amount of work that was put into it for each of the districts, and how each district feels different. And they've got all these different NPCs that are constantly interacting, so it doesn't feel stale. It's a very interesting interview. It's well worth going back and watching. We can put a link to this in the description, or just head over to the PC Gamer YouTube channel. Um, I'm I'm so excited about this game. It looks stunning every time I see it. It looks stunning, and I know I'm not going to play it this year, and it's really sad.
I know. I just really wish it was coming out at a different time. Like I've been looking forward to it for so long, and I feel like it's just coming out at the worst time for it right now, right? Like there being another giant RPG that I'm gonna have just gotten into by the time this comes out.
Yeah, it was just it's so cool to see some of the throwbacks to Dungeons and Dragons that you don't get in any other game these days, like the beholder just up on the wall in the bar that's, meant to be this trophy that someone's destroyed this beholder and kind of taken it down, and they've shoved it up to show it off to everyone. I just think it's so cool. Such a cool game, and I really hope it is successful, because I
Yeah.
don't want this to be the end of Baldur's Gate.
Me neither. Yeah, I mean, it just oozes Dragon Age vibe for me, and like, I want it so bad. So I'm definitely gonna play it. I'm gonna make a real effort to play it before the end of the year so that I can properly rate it among the games of the year, and hopefully I can stick to that promise.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for years at this point. This is another one where like I never played it in early access because I was like I don't want to spoil myself on it. Like I want to get into it and enjoy the final product, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like, I didn't go on early access for the same reason. That it was like crashing all the time, even on the high end PCs, and I wanted them to refine it because Larian make fantastic games. Divinity Original Sin and Original Sin 2 were phenomenal.
So then the next one was another one of your picks. This was Park Beyond.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we've had another theme park game, right? Roller Coaster Tycoon went away. We had Planet Coaster kind of pick up where they left off and revive the genre and bring it back. And Park Beyond looks like it's here to give them some competition, and it looks like it might be a little bit more friendly at first glance. Like they show a kid playing it, and he's able to kind of interact and build at this park in a sandbox mode. But there's also a career campaign that you can work through, and then it looks like you can really go into the weeds by like digging deep into like data and charts and everything you would want from a management sim if you really want to get down and dirty and be successful with your park. But it looks like you can play it all kinds of ways, which I think is really interesting. And I had no idea this game is coming out in 3 days' time on June 16th. So
That's
this is
wild.
one, if you've been kind of champing at the bit for another park sim game, go check out Park Beyond. It's coming to PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and it looks like it's gonna be a great time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't realize it was so soon either. That's huge. All right, and then next up, you wanted to talk about Bloomtown.
Yeah, did you see this game at all?
No, I'm taking a look at it right now.
So the trailer's so cool, right? It starts out like you are going to Stardew Valley, like but you're going back to this town. Everything's a little bit run down, but everyone's kind of cracking on with stuff, right? And then creepy shit happens. There's like things glitching out, and like children that are going missing, and like dark forces and things that are spoken about all the time. And eventually, this like story unfolds, and you end up going to this. It looks like you go to this other world, like you go through this portal, and you have to fight all these monsters. And you've got these turn-based battles, and you like get a party that kind of comes along with you. So like at first glance, it's Stardew Valley. It's the village game. It's everything you know from like that Harvest Moon style. But then when you really get down to it, it's not that at all. it's something completely different, and I absolutely loved that as a concept. I thought it was so cool, with, like, the kidnapping of the children and the like, the dueling that you've got going on in the battles with the turn-based combat system. I'm so excited to see where this one goes, and apparently it's coming soon, whatever that means.
Yeah. This looks really cool. Yeah. I didn't get to catch most of the PC game show, so I this was another one I didn't get to see yet. That's really cool.
My recommendation is don't watch the PC gaming show. It was really annoying. They had this premise of someone dressed up as Steve Jobs using ChatGPT to write all of his auto cues, and then some weird like AI in a bubble coming up with game ideas.
Hate
It
that.
was not it was not funny in the slightest. But there was some really good reveals, and they thankfully put every single trailer up on their YouTube channel, on the PC Gamer YouTube channel. So if you just want to check out what they revealed, aside from what we've spoken about, you can have a look over there.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I did look at it because I pulled some of this stuff, but yeah, I definitely didn't watch the whole thing. So I certainly I'll have to go back and pour over and see if there's anything else like this that didn't catch my eye because that's certainly a cool one. But speaking of things that caught some eyes, this next one we're going to talk about is Eternites, which is not the first time we've seen this one. I know we've talked about it in the past, and we got a write in from one of our very own from the community, our Patreon producer, Mr. Zaid Ida, who wrote in and said, "I've been following Eternites for years. To finally see a release date is super exciting. While big games are all well and good, there's something to be said about these smaller developers who take the things they're inspired by and literally use them to craft their own idea. I think Eternites has a real good chance of winning Indie Game of the Year if it's able to deliver on what it's promising. Besides Final Fantasy 16 and the Atlas stuff, this is easily the game I'm most hyped for that's coming up. I hope you guys pick it up too before I buy it for you." Wink.
It was so Persona when they're like all stood outside and they're looking up and there's the news thing going on, and then like shit happens based on what like they're looking at on the news. But then when you get into the gameplay, it's like Devil May Cry. So like they've
Yeah.
taken these two different games and then mashed it together with like a dating sim in between. And so I
Yeah, and
could
it's like
see why this would be a really big
way
popular
more,
combo.
way more dating sim than like what you'd get in Persona, right? Where it's like it's a
Mhm.
little more um
But you're on a dating app, like, that's what he's doing at the beginning of the trailer. He's like, "Oh, this is my first dating app, like, I'm really nervous about meeting you and stuff." Like,
yeah,
that
like
is
it's a
the
core mechanic.
kinda Yeah. I think it's a cool concept. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely one that I've got my eye on, it's like, it's one that, like, I kinda feel like I need to see more of it and get a sense for, whether or not, like, the gameplay loop is gonna speak to me and, like, how, is the story something I'm gonna respond to, that kinda stuff, but, I think, like, when you're just talking about the idea on its face and what we've already seen, like, it definitely seems like something I could see myself getting into for sure.
Yeah, and extremely impressive to come from such a small team, and I think it was one person that was working on it for a while.
Yeah.
Like, even just the anime on its own, it's phenomenal work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, very cool to see again, right? To see like more smaller studios be able to make games that feel decidedly more, like double A, right? And not like necessarily what you always expect from an indie release. Nice to
Mhm.
get a little variety. So then we're gonna jump over to the Ubisoft Forward event where we got another look at Star Wars Outlaw. This time around, we got some official gameplay, and it was quite an extended bit of gameplay. Right, it was about 10 minutes, and I thought it was a really good showing for the game. You saw a lot of content in the span of that time. It wasn't the entirety of a mission, but it felt like kind of a good you kind of join in the middle of a mission, right? Like, and it's you clearly already have started it and you're in the process of stealing this item and
And she
like
starts off sneaky, but then quickly has to change tack.
yeah, yeah, and I love that, right? Because it really gave you a sense of like what the different systems are and how they work, right? Like we get into
Yeah.
the opening bit where there's the emphasis on stealth, and there's a lot of the kind of standard stuff that you'd expect in any game, right? Where it's like you sneak up behind a guy and you choke him out, you punch him in the face, whatever, and he gets taken out. But then they showed how you can use Nyx, who is like the little animal companion that we saw in the trailer the other day. Um, to like interact with the environment in a lot of unique ways. Like he can help during combat, but also like they showed this thing where he goes and presses a button and then you can like jump on a crate and ride it across a room so that you can avoid a bunch of enemies, right? And stay stealthy. So I like that. I really appreciate the fact that like he's a core element of like how Kay solves problems, you know, like whether it's combat or not, right? Traversal and stuff like that. I love a good sidekick who's actually like a mechanic that is usable and interesting.
And I'm glad it's not another robot. I thought, that always seems to be their go-to in Star Wars is like,
You always get a
let's
droid,
give
right?
a
Yeah.
yeah, let's give a droid. It's nice to not have that and actually have something organic, which
Yeah,
I
it's
thought was really
different.
cool. I'm fitting with like someone who's an outlaw, maybe isn't access hasn't have access to kind of the same stuff, which I thought was really cool. Um, I thought this was a really great look at it, a really great look at all of the different mechanics. Like we got to see a little bit of the driving, we got to see a little bit of the fighting, we got to see a little bit of the mission stuff.
The gunplay
And
looks good.
visually, I thought it was very impressive. Like,
Yeah, it's
I
pretty.
know I had reservations when we spoke about it, on the last episode where I was just like, "Well, are they in game? Is it in engine? Do we know that? Is it kind of pre-rendered cutscenes?" No. It's pretty clear it was all in engine,
Oh yeah.
and like, it looks really, really fucking good.
Yeah, yeah, man. And like this was exactly what I wanted to see. It's like exactly the type of game I was hoping for. It is a single player story driven game. It's open world. There is like, just a really well realized Star Wars world here, right? And it's like a different side of the galaxy than we get to see in a lot of stuff, and not that we never see it, but it's certainly less represented. And yeah, like getting to see how there are like morality choices and narrative choices that have an immediate outcome on the story, I think is really interesting. Because like w- in that scenario that we were talking about, right? Um, the game seemed to give me the impression that if you hadn't been caught during that stealth section and forced the shootout, that you would have been able to steal the item, get away with it, and the faction that you stole from would not have known that you stole from them. But because they did, you get a call from the droid who's on your group, and it's like, oh, the Pike Syndicate, like they're not going to be hiring us for a while, right? Because like you stole from them, you pissed them off, right? And then
Yeah.
like they show that moment later on where you go to deliver the item that you stole to some person, and she's hanging out with somebody from the Empire, and they try to extort a bribe out of you, and you can either give them the bribe or you
Bribe or
cannot.
not bribe, yeah.
And then in this, right,
Yeah,
she
while you've got your gun
refuses.
out, like, pointing at them.
Yeah. Oh my god. And like I was like, yo, Kay is awesome. Like she's a badass, right? Like totally. And if I'm assuming if you bribe her, you can just walk right out, right? But if you don't, which is what happens in the demo,
Then
the
you get
Empire
the
starts
chase on your
chasing
bike.
you.
Yeah.
And then like
Oh god,
literally
so
you
good.
run to your ship, get on the ship and fly out into space and they're still chasing you in TIE fighters, and oh, it's just to see how seamless it was from I'm in the stealth mission, I'm in a shootout, I'm on the speeder, I'm back in a cutscene, I'm running to the ship, I'm in space, and there's no loading screen through any of that, right? It's like, okay, all right, like that's pretty cool.
Which, we've gotta see if that is true, right? Some of this
Yeah,
could be
vertical
changed because
slice.
the aspect ratio was 21:9 on this presentation as well. So my guess is you're not gonna be playing in ultra wide on your standard TV if you're gonna be
Right.
playing on that. Um yeah, I think it looks so good. They really captured the vibe of Star Wars as well with the graphics and the feel and even the transitions, right? With the wipe transition and stuff like that. It was very
Yes.
uniquely Star Wars now. No one else does that anymore. Everyone did it back in the 60s and 70s, but no one does it anymore other than Star Wars. And it really feels like that's a unique element. And they've totally captured it. Genuinely, if I looked at this game and you told me Ubisoft made it, I would not have believed you. Absolutely not have believed you. And
I
that's like
mean,
I don't
Massive is a good studio. I mean, that's the thing is like Ubisoft gets a bad rap, but they used to make be like just churn out great games, and like they do have studios that have a lot of talent. Like maybe you're not the type of person that's going to go play the Division, but like people like the Division a lot, It has a dedicated audience that's kept it afloat because it's good. It's
yeah,
cool
what
to
I
see
couldn't
them
believe
do
though
something that's more mainstream,
Well, it seems like they're shifting to this style of game, right? Because they also worked on Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, which was the other big
Yeah.
game that we got to see there. Jim Cameron came out and showed us and told us how amazing the world of Pandora was.
Real quick,
Uh,
before we do get to that, I do just wanna talk, just a little bit about the space flight stuff, because I had a question for you about what you think the scope of Outlaws looks like. Because I was kind of initially thinking it was gonna be on, like, 1 planet or 2, but the fact that, like, you get it like, you're getting chased by the Empire, you get off, you go into space, and then it's like you're in a system. It makes it seem like
I
you're gonna
think
go to a
it's in
bunch
one
of different
system.
areas.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to like Outer Worlds, right? Where you're in one system, you can access a few planets, but it's not star-filled where there's 1,000.
No.
You know, it's probably like 10 planets at most that you're jumping through, which was the same as like Jedi Fallen Order, right? You could go jump between planets, but you didn't see the whole planet. You're in one area on that planet. It
Yeah.
was a small area and you could explore that. I would imagine it'll be a similar vibe here with Outlaws.
That's kinda what I'm thinking. But it's interesting. The other thing that caught my attention was I thought it was cool that there were multiple times where the objective was to escape. It wasn't to like, "Oh, fight your way out, kill everybody." So you just gotta get out of here, right? Like, because
And you can
you're
figure out however you want to do it. It's your choice.
yeah, very cool, very cool. This game jumped to that like top 5 most anticipated titles for me, I think.
We've got
Gotta say,
no clue
Steve,
when this one's coming, do we? They didn't
no.
even give it even next year as a date.
It looks like it's pretty far along. It could have just been a
Yeah, but
good
so did
vertical slice.
Cyberpunk, right? And we saw that years and years in advance, and then it like came out. So I think this could easily be a vertical slice, and it could
You're
be
right.
2 years out.
You're right. I think the difference with me for me with Cyberpunk was a lot of times with Cyberpunk, they would show us a bit of it and then talk about, "Oh, this is how this is gonna work. This is how" they just showed us things here that are already working.
Yeah, but we had that 1 hour demo. Do you remember that 1 hour demo that was
They did a couple
initially
of
a
them.
behind
The
closed doors thing?
night studio, the night wires or whatever, they showed a lot of that.
Yeah,
So,
and so I think this definitely was a vertical slice, but I really have a lot of faith in it,
the vision
especially
seems very clear.
yeah, and especially, considering what they did with The Division, is even though that wasn't people's cup of tea, I liked The Division. I thought what they did with the open world was good, and I think, really people just were bored of looter shooters, and they've only got enough time for one, which is Destiny. If you're gonna do a looter shooter, you're gonna play the best one.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you're gonna get right down to it, like, what's the most successful looter shooter that's not Destiny? I mean, the Division's up there, right? People play the Division. They like the Division too enough to get it too. So yeah, I think they're a
We
great studio. I have full faith that this game is gonna come together and be exceptional. Looking at this, I thought this looked really, really good, and it was meeting, like checking all the boxes for what I was hoping for from it when we saw the glimpse of it the other day. So, after this, like I said, this is one that I'm very, very excited for, and I think, you know, if this game comes out and it's good, I'm ready to tell people to shut up when they talk shit about Ubisoft because this looks good.
yeah. One question I've got about it before we do move on to Avatar, they've got a lot of job openings specifically to work on Star Wars Outlaws on their website. Do you think this is one of those nobody wants to work at Ubisoft things, and so we need people to work at Ubisoft, and people like Star Wars, and this game looks good. Why don't we announce it early and get people to come and work here?
I think that there's definitely a chance that that's the case, but I again, I think it looks like it's pretty far along, right? Like them saying that it's coming 2024. They didn't have to give us a release date, right? Like this is the first time we've actually seen this game. Um,
They didn't say 2024, did they?
yeah, at the end of the trailer it says 2024, doesn't it?
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, it doesn't say
Um,
anything about it on their website.
so to
No,
me,
no date at all.
that gives me the impression that it's pretty far along. So I don't know. Hopefully it looks as good as it, or hopefully it comes out as good as it looks because you know, obviously we were both impressed by what we saw, and trailer's a trailer, but based on how many in-engine cutscenes we've seen from different parts of the game, and just like right, like we saw a lot in the initial reveal that was not a part of this mission. So they're far enough to be doing that stuff and to have a significant amount of finished animatics. So I kind
Yeah.
of get. I kind of get the sense that this game is pretty far along, and that doesn't mean they don't need to hire more people, right? Like that could be a lot of reasons, and we know Ubisoft has had trouble with turnover. So who knows? But hopefully the game doesn't come in hot and it's able to stick the landing, because this could be a really big win for them.
Agreed, and really refreshing to see that they've not dropped Snowdrop as their engine. They're continuing to persist with their own in-house engine, which is great. It's powered all sorts of games, from The Division to that what was that game? South Park game use
Oh,
Snowdrop.
the second one, not Stick of
Yeah,
Truth. It was Fractured But Whole.
yeah, that one used it. Mario Rabbids has used it. They can seemingly leverage this for everything. It's not like it only really works for this one style of game, which we saw was the issue over at EA, right? Where they tried to
Yeah, with
make
Frostbite.
everyone use Frostbite, and it was just like, this doesn't work. And I'm really glad that there's still some competition for Unreal. I do worry that Unreal Engine is going to become the de facto choice, and no one else is going to continue to work on their own engines. And it's nice to see what can be achieved when you build your own tech, because Star Wars Outlaw looks fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, we got a couple other games we'll talk about later that are really good looking games. Or I guess some of them we might not even hit, but there's a couple games we saw over the course of this week that are impressive and in different engines. So it's nice to see some variety there. So now let's make the jump over to Avatar, right? So we got our first like proper look, right, at Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. We know it's now coming in October. What was the specific date? I missed it, I think. Well,
I have no idea. December 7th is coming.
oh, December. Okay.
Yeah.
December 7th then. Sorry about that. Um Yeah, I this is interesting because it's from the same studio, same team at Massive, right? Or not the same team, but the same studio. And you know, uh I feel like we had slightly different takeaways. I know you said that you thought comparatively to Outlaw this feels mid. I think I don't
I I think
necessarily disagree with that, but
yeah.
I don't think it looks bad by any stretch. I think it looks a
I don't
lot
think it
better than
looks
I
bad.
thought
That's
it
what I
would.
mean. I think it looks mid. I think it's a 6 or a 7. I don't think it's a bad game. I don't think it's going to be up there with where I think Star Wars is going to land, which is probably a 7 to a 9. I think it probably is going to be a pretty good game, especially considering it's really the first proper open world Star Wars game. Maybe it's the kind of color treatment or the world of Pandora I don't like, but something looks like this game is a last gen game and Star Wars looks like a current gen game. And it could be that this has been in development for so long, so it is using last gen tech, and they've just kind of dropped the last gen and they're just releasing it on PS5 and a Series X now. But Star Wars looks visually a massive step up from this. There's parts where you can see like artifacts around leaves. The water shaders don't look as good. I don't think the lighting's as good. I think Star Wars just looks better. And I also couldn't give a flying fuck about Avatar, and that really does factor into it. I know you put that in the notes. I find this world so boring. I find the story so boring. I don't like the concept of it. As much as James Cameron wants to tell me how wonderful it is, I'm never going to believe him because I watched the first movie and I don't think it's great, and I'm never going to go back.
I don't really care about the Avatar IP. It's never something that I've particularly cared for. But I do think that the gameplay of this looks interesting, right? Like it being like effectively a Far Cry game with an Avatar skin. I mean, Far Cry 6 was bad. So like I've been waiting and I didn't love Far Cry 5. So I've been wanting a Far Cry like experience for a while and have not really had it hit. And I think like the
Far Cry
narrative
3 is
here,
always a good choice. I highly
I went
recommend
and
going back
replayed
to
it. I went and replayed it, but I want something new. And the
Yeah, I totally
idea
get that.
I think like the story, it makes sense, right? Like it is very much the progression of a Far Cry as well, where it's like you're a member of the Na'vi that was taken in by humans, like to try and basically make like you know,
Go take down the RDA and stuff, right?
well, yeah, but that's the thing is they kidnapped you to try and like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
train.
They turned you into an avatar, didn't they? That was the whole story of the movie, that, like,
Yeah, but
they
now
would
it's
go
like
into the computer.
It's like it's different though, right? Because in the story of the movie, it was, well, we'll put the human in the body and they'll infiltrate them, but then he goes
Mhm,
native, right? It's the Dances with Wolves thing. And I shouldn't have
mhm.
said that because I think that's probably offensive now that I think about it, that term. But that's the turn of phrase. Uh,
It's the story of Pocahontas, basically, right?
or Dances with Wolves, right? Which is the
Mm.
Pocahontas ripped that off. Um, but the the kind of like evolution of that, right? Of like, okay, that didn't work. So now we're gonna kidnap Navi children and turn them into soldiers and like raise them as part of human culture and try to turn them against their own people. And then now you're this fish out of water, between two worlds. You're gonna go get revenge on the people that took you from your people, but also you've been frozen. So like the all the folks that are around, don't know you, have no relationship to you. Like you have to kind of reconnect with your heritage. Like, I don't know, all of that seems interesting and it feels like a good way to use the IP in the like framing of a Far Cry game. So I don't know. Like it might come out and be mid and be something that's
Maybe.
like worth skipping, but I could see it being a surprise because I did not think it was gonna look good at all. And I think this looks serviceable, you know?
Okay. Yeah, it looks okay. That's the thing. That's what I mean when I say it's like it's a mid game compared to me and you went away from Star Wars completely blown away. We saw 10 minutes of gameplay and we were
Yeah.
sold on it and we just can't wait, right? And did you see, before we move on from this game, the phrase that Ubisoft has now coined because we can't say next gen anymore for the consoles and what they're using to
New
say?
gen, right? Didn't they say?
New gen, the
Yeah.
power of new gen consoles, which I think is fantastic. So I think that's what we're gonna have to call PS5 and Series X now. They're new gen. Even though they're 3 years old,
Sure.
they're new gen.
They're new. It's the new gen. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I wonder how we might feel about this if we had any connection to the IP, right? Like, is this something that
Okay,
you know what I mean?
let's put that out to the audience then. If anyone there's gotta be someone that listens to the show that's a big Avatar fan. Let us know if this did anything for you. Write into pop in the description or in the comments or come into our Discord or write into questions at flipscreen.games because I wanna know who this game is for. And you're probably right, it's probably for the millions of people that went to go watch Avatar, and enjoyed it, but we
I
just
could
weren't
see it.
those people.
I could see it landing in the 7-8 range, and I could see myself based on that giving it a roll. So we'll see. Because I don't care about the IP at all, but
Yeah, it might
also
be a pick it up on
go ahead.
might be a pick it up on sale kind of thing, right?
Yeah, because like I like this kind of game. So if it's good,
Mm.
I'll give it a shot, you know? I don't need to have a connection to the IP to enjoy it, I don't think.
There's enough open world games for me to go back and check boxes in. You know, I think if I'm going to go back to an open world game of content that we've got new content for, it's probably going to be Cyberpunk. I'm going to go back to that one if I'm going to go back to any this year, and that's very unlikely anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I beat that game though, so, you know,
Hmm.
I need something new. So then we got a follow-up on Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Not like too much new information, but, they just chatted a little bit more about, like, the story and kinda some of the systems that are at play and everything. And I mean, I just think this game looks good, I'm just excited about it.
Me too. I think the fact that I think this really quashes any issues I had with the fact that Sands of Time remake disappeared. I actually don't think we need the Sands of Time remake anymore. This brings in the kind of time element that you got in Sands of Time, and you can rewind to go back to the other side of an enemy during a fight, so you can kind of stab them in the back when they're not looking and they're looking the other way. All of those things kind of factor into it, and you can like solve puzzles. And there's a companion that can also like reverse time and do all of that stuff as well, which I thought was really cool. I like the look of it. I think it's probably going to be a pretty good game, and I think it's going to be one I'll pick up at launch in January. I
Yeah, I
say
think so
that,
too.
never know what else is going to come out. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I very much get like Metroidvania vibes from it when they
They
talk about like exploration is everything and there's new
Yeah.
secrets that are going to unlock when you get new powers and things like that. Really feels like they've played something like a Metroid Dread and are like this would really work for Prince of Persia and let's add that time element and stuff. And I like that. I think it's a good fit for the IP.
Yeah, them saying the thing that, like, you'll get new powers and then you'll be able to unlock new secrets in this quote unquote semi-open world. I'm like, okay, so this is a Metroidvania. Like, yeah, you're outright confirming that that's going to be kind of the progression system here. And yeah, I mean, it looks great. I think the combat looks fluid. Um the platforming and like the like precision dodging of everything midair and stuff like that. Like, I really like it. It feels like a really good way for them to, because I mean, I think at some point we'll still get the Sands of Time remake, and that's cool. But this is more like akin to like the original Prince of Persia, like before the
They
Sands
showed
of
that in the
Time era, you know?
presentation. They had the producer come out and talk about it, and I did not think it was a good presentation. Again, I think this was the presentation that felt like E3. I don't know if you watched it at all, Pete, but like we started with Just Dance. We had someone come out in a cringy costume and stuff for like another announcement, and the way that the presenters just went on and
There's a
round in
lot of
circles,
bloat. The thing
and
that's
I'm like,
crazy is the trailer that I'm showing to the kids right now is it's the same footage and it's almost the exact same like voiceover, but rather than it being from the developer on the stage, it's just a person doing the voiceover and it's like cut together more quickly.
that's
And
what
it's
they
just
should
like,
have done.
yeah, it's like you didn't need all that bloat, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that said, they had 2 games that look excellent, that look really excellent, and that are new games to us. So you gotta give them credit where
Yeah,
credit's due.
yes. 100%. Skull and Bones, really can't wait. That's coming out.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Skull and Bones, Steve, because literally all I wrote in the notes was, "Holy crap, really? That's all you've got? Yikes." Nothing. It was nothing. It was
It was
yet
this
another
was
cinematic
another
trailer
E3 moment.
with a song. And
It
it said,
wasn't
"Here's the
even a
song."
trailer. It was like people on stage singing, and I'm like,
Yep.
"Please stop. Just stop.
Like, "You
I
can
don't
download
want
the
this."
song that we made.
And then all they had was there's a closed beta coming in August for 3 days. God knows when this game's coming. Never at this point. It really should not come. This game should be cancelled.
They have to put
It's
it out.
probably a
They have to
mess.
put it out. They
Just put it
literally
out
have
to
to.
die then and move on.
They
Like, put it
can't.
out and move on.
They owe like the Singaporean government like invested in this game. They have to put it out and they have just I don't know, man. I don't know how this game is not out yet. It's insane.
Yeah, it was a spin-off of Assassin's Creed, and it was Assassin's Creed was a spin-off of Prince of Persia. What's gonna spin off from Skull and Bones, do you think? Is it just gonna be Skull
Are
or
you kidding me?
Bones?
No, like nothing's gonna spin off from Skull and Bones. They're gonna put this game out and hope that everyone forgets about it.
I can't believe they even put a Ubisoft original on this. I would not wanna be associated with it. I would be like, "No, take that one off. We can
Don't.
say this is someone else's, it's
Yeah,
fine."
maybe don't. Right? Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I don't know about all that. So then we got a story trailer for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Of course, we got the October 12th release date for this one at the PlayStation Showcase a couple weeks back. That trailer was more like a vibe trailer, right? Like it was more just like, here's some gameplay, here's with some music and hard cuts. This was really getting into the story and like giving us more background on like our lead character and everything and how he joins the assassins and what his journey is going to be and everything. And it's interesting because like I don't know, man. I look at this trailer and every once in a while they show us something like this that I'm like, this seems kind of cool. Like maybe I should give it a shot again, but I just never get back into it. I don't know that I can care about Assassin's Creed anymore, but like I like the idea of more linear, like story driven games like this making a comeback. And I like that they're trying to do something that is a little closer to the root. And, you know,
Mm,
I liked
I
Assassin's
don't
Creed 2 and Brotherhood a lot. And that's only 2 games. I like Black Flag a lot, right? But, like, I could take the rest of them, and I'm good, you know? I could take or leave them.
I like Origins and Odyssey. I like that style. That's when I
Never
got
tried
into
them.
Assassin's Creed. Yeah, I think they're great. I think you'd actually really like them. That if you want something like Far Cry that's checking boxes, that's taking down things stealthily and stuff like that, go and play Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Origins. Odyssey,
It's
I
not
would
the
say, is probably a
same.
good one.
It's a different
They're
itch.
pretty similar. They're
Yeah,
pretty
but it's not the
similar.
same gameplay. Like, I don't really like the gameplay of Assassin's Creed like that, you know? Like, where it's like I wanna have a huge map with stuff to do, like, where it's like Far Cry, the gunplay, how visceral it is and everything is like, yeah, it's fun to just go and jump into I don't really want to like take out. I don't know, like that's why like when they're like, oh, we're making it open world. It's like actually, I don't know if that's for me. And they might be great because I've heard that they're great. So, but I've
They're
never.
really, really great, and you get different skills and different powers, and like that helps you. But yeah, I get it. They're not for everyone. I like that we're getting the choice now. Mirage is maybe a return to form, which we saw with that Vive trailer of the PlayStation. Looks like, as in typical Ubisoft fashion, it's a very political game, even though they say they're not political in any way. Um, and I think it's good. I like the look of it. I think it's going to be a good story, and it's probably going to be exactly what Assassin's Creed fans want. I'm looking forward to most though. Never can remember the name of it. The live service Assassin's Creed. What's that
Oh,
called?
I don't remember.
But that's the one I'm excited about because I love the idea of these smaller maps, these smaller places that you can go into and just like do a couple of missions and kind of jump out and go to a different area and a different vibe and a different kind of feel, maybe a different time period. I like that. I think that's a cool concept.
Cool. So, jumping over to the Capcom showcase, you wanted to talk about Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the only thing there I cared about. I don't know about you. I like Ace Attorney. We got the original Phoenix Wright trilogy. We've now got another one, the Apollo Justice trilogy, which is the three Apollo Justice games: Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice. And you can kind of follow Apollo Justice throughout his stories. Basically, it's Ace Attorney games. Everyone knows what they are. If you've not played them before, it's a perfect time to get back in. You get three games for the price of one, and the Ace Attorney games are fantastic visual novels, and they're really fun. And get to object in court, and it's coming in early 2024. Well worth a watch. Well worth a play, I think.
I love the point. I love the objection point.
Yeah, yeah, it's so fun. On the
Objection!
3DS version, you used to have to, you could shout it out if you wanted to, and it would pick it
That's
up on the
awesome.
microphone.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, the only thing that really stood out to me in the Capcom showcase was Dragon's Dogma 2, which we got another look at that. They talked. It was kind of like like deeper dive, right? Like developer conversation, kind of getting into some of the systems, talking about what's evolved from the first game, and yeah, I mean, this is a game that like the original was one I was really interested in, and it was just never I never got around to it. And looking at this, I mean, it's got a good feel to it. They talked about the pawn system where you get an AI companion that like you get to customize as well as your player character, and then you can also like borrow up to two others from other players to have like up to four party members to assist you in combat. Um, but I like the idea of like you having like a sidekick character that you get to kind of develop and then have a relationship with or whatever. Something that they talked about that I thought was really cool is that they said that this is built using the RE engine, which, like you said earlier, really cool to see, a studio like Capcom double down on one of their proprietary engines and like use the RE engine to make something that's like new and an original title, right? Is neat.
Yeah, that engine's phenomenal. We've seen that engine used in a bunch of games now. The weirdest games it's been used in is the Capcom Arcade Second Stadium game, where they used it to build the menu system.
Cool. It's cool to see it here because like showing off some of the powers and stuff, like uh it's just so different than anything you've seen in Resident Evil, right? Like there's the one shot that they showed in both trailers of like the mage like summoning these like fireballs from the sky. And I was like, that looks so dope. Like it's just the magic looks so cool. And there's like a really, really interesting amount of like creature diversity and yeah, I don't know. I think it looks really neat. It's one that I think I missed out on the first one, and I think I'd like to make sure I give this one a shot.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, Exoprimal is also using the RE engine as well. It seems to be their engine of choice, which makes sense. Is there as they own it, they don't have to pay any licensing fees, and by all accounts, it seems to do a really good job. They did show Exo Primal. I don't think either of us really care about it. It's coming out on July 14th, which I don't think anyone knew about.
No, yeah, it's like I like the idea of fighting dinosaurs and everything, but like it being like a multiplayer, like I don't know, it doesn't really seem like it's my kind of game, and I'm not looking for stuff to play in July, frankly. So we saw it here and again at the Xbox showcase. I think it looks good for what it's going for, but I don't know that that's for me.
Yeah.
So jumping over to the Xbox side of things, the Xbox Game Showcase extended. We had a bunch of follow ups with the games that we saw at the showcase proper. There was some new stuff as well that we also got to take a look at. Quite a bit of content, and they had Tina Amini doing a bunch of interviews with mostly developers. They also had one with Keanu Reeves during the Cyberpunk segment. So I thought this was interesting because I like that Xbox has kind of adopted this strategy of having the main showcase where they really bring all the big announcements be like leaner and like paced more like tightly and have it be a lot of hot announcements, minimize the talking, minimize the stuff that's going to slow you down. And then in this, you kind of have more room for that stuff, right? Like you have the interview with Keanu Reeves.
It's the Nintendo Treehouse
Yeah,
effect.
yeah, but
It's like
also
we get to go over and hear more.
you think about it though, a lot of this stuff was the stuff we used to get at E3. And it's cool that they, I think, have adopted that strategy now of like, if you care about this stuff, we're gonna give you a spot to show up for it. But if not, we're not gonna have a 2 hour
Yeah.
presentation where we could have had an hour and a half, right?
This is the stuff Jeff would do on his sofa at E3, right? Of the people there, and he'd be talking to them about the game that they'd saw, and like he'd get
Mhm.
the kind of piece to camera and stuff. But yeah, there was some good stuff here. I was surprised at the number of announcements because they said, like they always do, that it was going to be a focus on the games that we'd already seen at the showcase, and they're going to go dive deeper, which they did for some of the games like Avowed and Towerborn. I actually know what that game is now. But we
I
did
want to
get some
talk
fresh
about
announcements as well.
I want to talk about those two. Let's start there because I thought that was really cool. Avowed, I didn't necessarily feel like I needed as much of a deep dive as I did on Towerfall, but like I'm excited about Avowed, so I was happy to hear more about it. And I think they answered a lot of the questions that I think folks probably had going into it. They had a conversation with the games director Carrie Patel, who said that she confirmed a couple, I think, pretty common questions, right? Which is that if you're not a fan of the Pillars of Eternity universe, that like that's fine. The fact that it takes place in that universe is not something that's gonna preclude new players from jumping on here. But that if you are a longtime fan of the Pillars universe, that there are things like certain factions or like certain locations in the universe, or like maybe even specific characters that you might recognize. But it's going to be one of those things where it's like you know it's one of the if you appreciate that,
It's
then
Easter egg, right?
yeah, exactly, right? But it's not one of those like slow down and
I
shove
think
the Easter egg in your face type thing from the
yeah,
sound of
I
it.
think it's like the jump from when Bethesda took over Fallout, and it went from the
Sure.
top-down look to the 3D look, and it feels like this is the 3D game in the Pillars of Eternity universe. But it doesn't matter because if you don't know anything about it, they're still going to kind of set you up to understand it and live in that world. But if you
Yeah.
were a big fan of Fallout before, you're like, hey, look, there's the Brotherhood of whatever it's called, and
Steel.
yeah, that Brotherhood of Steel. There they are. There's my good old friends.
So then they also talked about the character who was narrating the trailer, the like lizard guy, I forget I don't know what the race is called. Um that he's one of the first companions that you'll meet. And they kind of like confirmed softly that there's like a broader party, there's a whole group of companions that you'll meet. Um and then they talked about like the kind of like player character's mission and everything, that like you're coming into this realm that to investigate that soul plague that they were talking about. And that you're like the envoy of an empire that I think Pillars fans would recognize. But that like the fact that you have because that character who was narrating made a comment about being like afraid of your character's power and everything. And they talked
Hmm.
about the fact that you have this like unique soul connection to this realm, and that's why you have these unique powers that other people don't have. And that they seem to confirm that like the way that combat plays out is pretty similar to what I think we thought. where it seems like progression is going to be similar to like what we saw in Skyrim, where it is based on how you play. So like if you play as a brawler, you'll continue to build your brawler skills. If you play as a mage, you'll continue to build your mage skills. But it doesn't sound as if you're like locked into a specific class. It's like you can kind of make a hybrid class that's just based on how you like to play, which obviously anybody who's played Skyrim will recognize right away. And then in terms of size and scope of the game, which was, I know, one of the big questions that you and I had, she said that it's comparable to something like Knights of the Old Republic 2 or The Outer Worlds, where it's more a series of big interconnected areas rather than one consistent open world. And that
I was
how
really happy
much
to hear that, to be honest. Like, I don't
really,
need any more open world games, I don't
yeah,
think. And
I I was happy with that. I was afraid you were going to be disappointed by that.
no, because I liked how they handled it in Outer Worlds. It didn't feel like I was restricted.
Hmm.
I think if they do it well, which I think Obsidian will, I think it'll feel cohesive anyway. I don't necessarily need everything to be I can walk from here to there, you know?
I agree.
Uh, I'm okay with it. It's kind of how Diablo always was. Like I could go back to all of the different areas and different worlds, and it did feel open enough. But I didn't care that I couldn't walk from Act One area to Act Two area. I think
Open
that's
areas
fine.
are underrated, I think, because I like a good open world game as much as the next person, but there are a lot of games that are not conducive to a good open world. And if you want to tell a story that is like really about character and about narrative and about like a land and its people and all that, like the smaller the world is, the more ability you have crafted moments and to get deep into things like character and lore because you're not at the mercy of the player running around in this big open space, right? They're in this space that you crafted for them. And yeah, there's a primary objective, but they like Carrie even said, right, that like it's up to players how much time they want to spend exploring and doing side quests. Like a more linear experience is definitely possible if that's what your preference is, but similar to the Outer Worlds, there is a lot of stuff that you will never see if you don't explore, if you don't like go and kick some of the rocks over and try to see what's around, right? I like experiences like that a lot. And I would rather have more games like that than try to force everything to be an open world. And you have games like, like I think of something like Dragon Age Inquisition, right? Where like I like that game, but the open world is sucks. Like it's not good, it's not engaging. It's the narrative, it's the story, it's the quests, it's the missions, the specific stuff that's good. And Obsidian, like you said, they showed that they could do that with Outer Worlds. That game never felt small. It just felt like I'm on this planet and this is what I'm doing here. And now I'm on this planet and this is what I'm doing here. I
Well,
love that.
and each planet felt different. Each area felt very unique, and I think you can get that with we're probably gonna get that with Avowed. Like, it looked like there was a good number of differing environments in the trailer that they showed at the Xbox showcase. I'm excited for it. I was
Me
looking
too.
forward to it anyway, and hearing more about it made me even more excited.
So let's talk about Towerborn because this was an interesting one. This was a game that both of us, when they initially unveiled it, we had some complaints about the presentation of it, right? Like not even like saying that it looked like a good or bad game, but more like I don't know what this game is based on what you just showed me. And that was the
Yeah,
only trailer I felt
whichever
that way about.
whichever company they got to put the trailer together did a very poor job. I felt like with this, I got a glimpse of what it is, and it feels like it's multiple kind of different genres and types put together with like an overworld on that hexagon map that we saw. I think that's one of the big things that kind of confused me. I was like, oh, is this going to be like Civilization, where I'm like, oh, the whole gameplay is taken on this hexagon map? And no, it's not like that.
No, and I mean, like, even so, right? Like, we were like, is this a brawler? Is this like a hack and like a not a hack and slash, but like a side-scrolling beat 'em up? Like, what kind of game is this? And we got a lot of answers in this broader conversation about it, right? They said that it is a story-based action adventure game. It is available in both couch co-op or online co-op, and that basically you and either on your own or with a group of players, you go out into like the overworld, right? And you get into these battles, and then you take resources from those battles back to the airship that's called the Belfry, which is like this last bastion of humanity. The world has been overtaken by monsters, and it's like really hostile, and humanity is like on its last legs, and the belfry is this, kind of last attempt at saving human society and salvaging the world, right? And that, you're going to be building it out over time and kind of doing all this stuff. But where I got surprised was when they talked about the game being around 5 years from now. That like this is a game as a service, right? And that there's going to be seasons, and each season there's going to be a new story mission that'll come with new sets of quests, new monsters, new bosses. Like just like a whole new set of content for the game, and that their goal is to like over time build it out into this like kind of, they said living, breathing world, right? Which I didn't get that sense at all from what we saw on, the previous showcase.
No, me neither. Absolutely, I would have never guessed that. I thought it was a small kind of indie title to pad out Game Pass for a year, not something that they see as like an ambitious game as a service. But I'm interested in checking it out when it does finally hit Game Pass in 2024. But
It's cool. It's very
I
different, you know?
yeah, they were right when they said it's something unique because I
Yeah,
think it very very much is.
that was something I thought was really cool, right? They were like, we've been working on this game for a long time. We feel like we finally found the right relationship with a publisher and Xbox, and that like the direct quote was, "I truly believe that it's something unique, and we're excited for people to play it." And cool. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for something truly unique. So
Hmm.
let's see. So then we got to look at Hi-Fi Rush. It had obviously there was kind of a leak recently via achievements that there was going to be some new content coming to Hi-Fi Rush, and everybody was a little bit surprised that we didn't get it at the initial showcase. But of course, we got it today, so that was cool. We got a interview with the game's director, John Johannes from Tango GameWorks as well. They talked all about kind of the new content that's coming to the game. It's going to be out on July 5th, so pretty soon. The two big things were basically once you finish the game, there'll be an arcade cabinet that gets unlocked in your base, and there's two different modes you can access from that. One is BPM Rush mode, which increases the overall speed of the game. Johannes said that it could go up to 200 BPM, where I believe the original game topped out at 165. And they had an easy and a casual mode where you can play it at lower BPM, where if you're just not able to keep up with that 200, you can still experience the new content. And then you'll unlock an even harder mode where it'll be at max BPM, and enemies will have more damage from the beginning and through the entire mode. So a lot of extra content there. And then there's also the tower up, which is a randomized spin on the tower mode from the original game that you would get as part of the post game. And with that, there's going to be 5 new songs, 2 new boss fights, new attacks, new upgrades. And then the whole like kind of conceit of that system is that you start off downgraded, and then each battle that you win, you'll get to choose a new perk that also comes with like sometimes like a debuff as well. So it's like a real like roguelike, kind of feel to it, like with Hades or something like that, where you're picking, what's going to be your next power up, what's the style you're going for this time around. Um, so this is interesting. Personally, I feel like this should have been at the main show, and you should have not shown Towerborn, because I thought the trailer
Hon
for Towerborn
honestly,
like
I
did
don't
not make it look good, and then now seeing it here, I was like, "Oh, this is actually what it is. Cool." How many people didn't watch this and walked away being like, "What the hell is that game?" Whereas like we
mhm.
know what Hi-Fi Rush is. You could have just shown us 2 new modes coming to Hi-Fi Rush, and we'd be like, "Okay, great, awesome, we're in." Right?
I think this should have been there. 100% agree with you. And then they could have had the interview still where they walked through it, but we could have just had the 2-minute trailer to say that the new game modes are coming, the arcade challenge update trailer. But I don't think you needed to bump anything. We were 5 minutes off 2 hours anyway. You could have chucked it in there. If you're gonna
It's
bump
true.
anything, bump the Starfield trailer in the middle of the presentation that says, "Don't forget Starfield's gonna be on after." Like, We really didn't
It's a
need
good
that.
trailer, but it's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna watch 45 minutes of this very soon.
So, like, chuck Hi-Fi Rush in there anyway, give it its moment. This is their best rated game of 2023 so far, and to tuck it away in the extended showcase, it's kinda strange to me.
I kind of felt that way about the Lies of P section as well. We don't have to really get into all of it, but they talked a lot about the systems of that game, and there was a lot of things that I thought were actually really interesting, like how you can build your weapon and like how like each player can have a really unique build and like stuff that made it sound cool. And like it showed that there were like story choices where you can either be like more human or more robotic. And I was like, oh, like this is all stuff that is really cool. And why didn't you show me any of this at the showcase? Like this makes me more interested in this game.
Yeah, that's been everywhere though. Like, and they put a demo out at Summer Game Fest as well. So like it was part of their play days. So
Yeah.
I kind of maybe they felt that Liza P had enough. And it's not an exclusive, right? It's coming to PlayStation as well.
It's
So
coming to Game
may-
Pass though.
yeah, but maybe they wanted to focus on more of their games rather than third party in that
But they
case. But
did show it and they gave it the real, I see what you're saying. I think you're right. I feel like I could have stood to get one or two of these details in that trailer where they showed me the release date.
yeah,
That's how I
you've
feel.
said you might actually play this. I don't believe you. I don't believe that you're going to play a Souls game. Not
Not on
in
September 19th anyway, but,
no.
like, I played Jedi, right? Like, that's a Souls-like, and I just don't I
And
don't
and
really
you love Pinocchio, your favorite story as a
no,
child,
but I mean,
obviously.
it seems cool. I don't know. I like it. It's got a cool vibe.
Yeah, let's go take down Giuseppe.
First of all, his name's Geppetto. Second of all
Geppetto, whatever.
Alright. So, aside from that, there was a lot of other, like, kinda smaller things, like we said, we gotta look at Exoprimal, they talked about Phasmophobia coming to consoles, they showed off some games from the developer extension program that they talked about last year. Sarah Bond was back to show that stuff off. There's a lot of cool stuff there, but it's like, they were just so short that it's like, it's hard to grab on and really talk about any of it. And, like, when some of the other stuff that we saw, like Go Mecha Ball was like a weird little indie thing they kind of shoved in there. I didn't think that looked great. Some of those things felt a little awkward to me. Like the Lightyear Frontier showing I thought was not good. It's like, I hate those like kind of canned multiplayer like presentations where it's like,
Oh god,
oh,
me
it's like we're
too.
really playing. And it's like, you guys made the game. Like, what's behind the door. Don't like, I don't know. It feels fake in a way that I just don't like. I would rather you just talk to me about what's exciting about the game.
Or gave it to people who hadn't played it. Give it to
Yeah.
2 streamers, let them play it, record the footage, and then show that. If you're
Yeah.
really serious and think your game's good, give it to people, let
And
them
it's
play
like,
it.
maybe that's what was happening, but it felt to me like it was acting.
Yeah, I think it was.
So I don't know. But then the thing that they closed it off on, I thought was a little weird. I thought it was a bit of an awkward way to end the show. But they did give us a live demo of 33 Immortals with Phil Spencer, who I don't know. Did you see his tag? It's like when like they do the lower third, and it's like
Yeah,
Sarah
no, I didn't
Bond,
see
like
it. What was it?
it said Phil Spencer, gamer. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's
oh
quite
hell
fun.
yeah, Phil, you're such a gamer.
Oh,
He
the
is. I'm not.
funniest
By the way, I'm not trying to talk shit. He is he plays a lot of games, but I just thought it was so fun. Yeah, I'm a gamer, baby.
now, what if that was Jim Ryan, gamer? Would you believe that?
No, no,
You'd
I
be
don't
like,
think
"Yeah,
I would.
okay, sure, Jim. I've seen how you held that DualShock 4. You're not fooling me."
It's like
Um,
it's like in like a movie where like somebody who's perpetually single is like holding a baby like it's a bomb. That's how he looks in that fucking picture. Like he
I
couldn't be
love it.
less
I love it
comfortable
so much.
holding a controller.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things. My favorite part of this whole thing was the tenuous link Phil was trying to do to get it back to Xbox Game Studios, where he like mentioned where they were geographically, and it was like, "Oh yeah, you're near such and such studio, one of our first party Xbox Game Studios," and I'm like, "Come on, Phil,
He's
no
like,
one really cares."
I love the game development scene up in Montreal.
It's like,
Uh,
okay, sure, let's get
I
back
did,
to 33. Why
I
is
did,
it 33?
I liked that. I did like that they answered that, right? So they talked about why they landed on 33 as the number. And they said that basically the goal was to find like the max number of players you could have in game and still have it feel good. And they were like 33 felt good, 32 felt good, whatever, right? So like we're trying to figure out where's the line. And they said that they landed on 33 specifically because there are three sections in Dante's Divine Comedy. If you're not familiar, it's very, I don't remember exactly the period, but it's a very old poem. And each of the three sections has 33 chapters. So they were like, oh, that's so cool. And it ties into the lore that we're trying to build here. And like in the gameplay, right, they showed that kind of the way that a match works is that all the players get dropped in. You're not all in the same place initially. Like you're kind of spread out across the board, and there are like different objectives to be completed. And you can kind of decide if you're, who's going to go where and do what. And there's like these torture chambers that you need to go and defeat. And then each time you do that, there'll be like this big world event where like the god attacks you and you've got to survive and then make it to the next chamber and kind of rinse repeat a couple times. And then you'll ascend to the next level. And then like that's where you'll go and do your final boss fight and everything. So pretty interesting, like I getting a sense of that, it definitely made more sense to me, like how you're gonna have that many players on screen and not have it feel like just chaotic as hell.
I mean,
But
yeah, I'm playing Diablo at the moment. There's like 1,000 things going on the screen at any one time, but I can still kind of know where I am. I think good design, you can kind of pick out where you are and know what's going on if they do it well. And it seems like they have been. Seems like they mentioned that it's a shift in terms from Spiritfarer, but that they would just want to make a good experience that players connect with, which I think was great. And there's a demo coming, which is you get to play with the full 33 people. I'm interested in checking that out because I feel like this is maybe the kind of game that only clicks when you play it in the same way as you remember
yeah.
Tetris 99. We're like, well, how the fuck's that gonna work? A battle royale with Tetris, and then we played it, and it was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I got the sense like when I was watching it and they were trying to explain to Phil what he was supposed to be doing, like as they were playing, it reminded me a lot of actually watching a MOBA where it's like the first time you play, you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what are the objectives? How do I do this? And but like once you
Honestly, that's how I felt when I was playing Pokemon with you, and you're like, yeah, go jungle, go down this track. And
yeah,
I'm
you
like,
gotta
I
do this.
don't know what the fuck you're on about, but
Exactly,
okay.
right? Like, you don't know what the flow of it is, or it's like doing, like, a raid boss in, like, WoW or Destiny or something, right? Where it's like, "Okay, we're at this phase, so now you gotta go here, and we gotta do this, and you heal, and I'll do this," and, like, it feels like once you get in there, you'll understand the flow of it and, like, how to coordinate with your teammates and all that stuff, and, Phil trying to figure that out for the first time while he's also interviewing them, I'm sure was difficult, right? And that probably
Mhm.
led to some of the awkwardness of it, but good to get another look at it and get a sense for what the game really is because I think between this and Tower, they did a good job of like being okay. So you saw that, and maybe you have some questions. Let's answer those questions. Let's dig in on that. Let's fill in some of those question marks that you probably still have. And yeah, I was very pleased. Like I feel like overall, you know, this is not the kind of thing I would grade on the same curve as the other showcases because it is supposed to be odds and ends, but I think it did a good job of doing what it needed to do. It answered a lot of the questions we had teed up. They showed off some new stuff that looked pretty cool. It was pretty low on fat or stuff that was not interesting. So
Yeah,
by that metric, it was a success.
I still feel like this is better than the Ubisoft presentation in terms of pacing and interesting things. There was two good things in the Ubisoft presentation, but that was really all I was interested in. And I thought the way the developers spoke about the games there was nowhere near as interesting as having someone interview them. And the interviewer, I forget her name, but she was really great.
Tina Amini.
She was really great. Yeah.
Yeah, she
And it
does a
was
good job.
nice to see Paris back as well. Like I love that guy.
I love
He's great.
Paris. Yeah,
Yeah.
big fan of Paris Lily. So that was cool to see him get the call up again to go do the silly Dune
He's always
interaction.
doing the flight sim shit, like,
Yeah.
every time. He's so funny,
Like,
I
we gotta
love
get
him.
this guy in a flight suit. Let's go. So yeah, I think good use of their time. I think they didn't waste time on too much. And yeah, I walked away with some stuff I wanted to learn. So can't complain about that. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty pleased with Summer Game Fest this year. I feel like this year feels like a real step up from what we've gotten the past couple years. And like obviously the show, is still in its infancy, but to me, this felt like it had a better rhythm, right? Like we had a good idea of what the shows were earlier on. It felt like there was more synergy between shows than there was in the past, right? Where it was like you got reveals at the Summer Game Fest kickoff, and then they would be like, "Hey," or at the Xbox event, "Hey, we're gonna show more at Ubi Forward. We're gonna show more at the Capcom event. We're gonna, that kind of conversation between the main um
That's
events.
what's
I
been
think,
missing. It's
yeah.
that the last couple of years has felt like Jeff just shoved his badge on other people's shows and wasn't really involved in the planning and the scheduling or
Now
anything. It felt like this time he was, and he was able to kind of be like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's well, if you're going to show that there, then let's point them to the Ubisoft thing that's going to be then. And if you're going to want to show this first, and you're going to want your event after, it feels like there was a structure to it a little bit more than there has been in the past. I
it
don't
feels like
know.
he's owned the architect role and that all the other players have agreed that Summer Game Fest is the thing now and
Yeah,
that Jeff is
apart
the
from
guy that
PlayStation.
moves the traffic around.
I I feel like PlayStation doing their event before the kickoff again. I know it feels weird. Feels strange. It wasn't branded as Summer Game Fest. It wasn't on their website as an event. It was like, oh, PlayStation's the outlier. They're doing their own thing. And then they had that one thing at Summer Game Fest with the reveal of the release date for Spider-Man, which was big. But on the whole, I agree with you. I think Summer Game Fest this year has felt a lot more structured and a lot better. And I also think the announcements have been better. The announcements have
Yeah.
been ridiculous this year,
I
and the
I I
stuff
think
that's coming out.
I think at this point, Nintendo's the only one that needs to get in line. Because as you said, right, like obviously Sony kind of went at their own pace, but like they did, I think they have set a precedent now, right? Where this is the second year in a row where they had one of the lead developers at one of their flagship studios come to Summer Game Fest, show off a game, do an interview with Jeff, and answer a bunch of questions. And if that's the only contribution they make every year, they're still there. They're still getting in line. They're still playing ball with Jeff to some degree, right? Even if they keep the showcase a little more separate, maybe eventually they move it up, right? And they do they do like with the Annapurna thing where like, yeah, maybe it still happens a week early, but it's on Jeff's website, right? Like, you know, the relationship's there. Nintendo's the only one that is like a no-show. But like,
Yeah, but they've had nothing to show this year, I think. I don't think they could show
mhm.
up and be like, "Here's some pastel Joy-Cons. Here's that everybody 1-2 Switch game that no one wants to play." Like they need
No, but
something.
they could have given him the Pikmin trailer. They could have
Yeah,
done
that's
something
true.
like that.
Yeah. Maybe they don't wanna get caught up in the whole, "Oh, is that it?" conversation, right? That we've already had that conversation about
Yep.
PlayStation, like, "Is that it, really?" And look at what Xbox brought to the table, really I think they hit it out of the park. That was the best presentation by far in terms of pacing, in terms of announcements, in terms of looks at gameplay, and the interviews in the extended showcase. Xbox really knows what they're doing in terms of marketing. And I think Nintendo just wants to do their own thing at their own pace and will continue to do so. I think I could see them there next year, especially if we do get another, like a sequel to the Switch announced, and maybe they show that off there.
I mean,
Or,
that's not to mention, right, that like it feels very, very, very like E3's dead now, right? Like
yeah.
I think it's dead now. So like I could see Sony and Nintendo maybe they were hedging their bets and we're going to see is E3 going to come back, like, where do we want to be, right? And this being a year where neither of them had much to show, it is like why show up and under deliver when you could take a year off or take a year where you give kind of a softer presentation and back off and let the dust settle and then
Mhm.
maybe next year when you have more to show, you take advantage of the relationship with Jeff because all Nintendo or Sony have to do is come to him and be like, "Hey, we're ready to play ball," and he'll be like, "Great, here's your spot." So there's no risk for them, right? To wait and see if they don't feel like they're ready. But
Yeah,
like I said,
agreed.
they gave him the Spider-Man 2 reveal date a week after their own showcase. So obviously they recognize that Jeff's power, in this right, like the stuff that he makes carries weight. People show up to it. They look at it seriously.
Yeah, strange, very strange. I'll be interested to see where they land next year. I think it would have been so cool to have like PlayStation open up the week, Xbox close out the week. We kind of sandwich it together in the same way that Nintendo and Xbox both used to kind of be at either ends of the conferences at E3. And I think it could be really cool. But I think Jeff's always going to want to own the kind of kickoff thing, right? And I think all of the big platform holders want their own presentations. Where does Sony's fit? Is it next to Xbox's, or do they do what they did and come out ahead of the curve,
I
ahead
think
of
it
Jeff's
matters,
event?
really. Like, I mean, I would like to have them be closer, but
Yeah, I think the fact that they're closer means that you can have that more cohesive stuff, right? It's not stale. It's not like, oh, 2 weeks ago I saw on the PlayStation thing that I need to tune in now to the Ubisoft Forward thing on the 12th.
right.
Whereas if it's in 2 days' time, you're going to get to see the Star Wars thing that's still fresh in your mind, and you're going to be really excited about it because you're excited about that cinematic trailer. How excited are you going to be about the gameplay that drops on Monday? And it gets you to tune in and wait for it. I don't think you get that if you're 2 weeks ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And it's tough because I definitely understand Sony wanting to like own their own moment and not feel like they're competing and not feeling like, they're one of many people sharing headlines rather than just owning the day when they do their own thing. But, you know, uh, I don't know. I think there's an advantage to kind of playing both sides of it a little bit, right? And like finding a way to how do we do our own thing and also, be a part of the community, right? And be a part of the moment
Yeah.
that is Summer Game Fest, right? Because this was the most I think it felt like E3 so far. Whereas this was the most where it felt like, oh, it's
Yeah, I was
E3 season.
excited. I was excited watching the presentations, like seeing all the news coming out. It's exciting. I always loved E3. And it feels like it's back. And I think next year is going to be even more so. I think it's going to go from strength to strength. Jeff's already announced it's coming back next year. Playdays are going to up again to kind of another level. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes.
We gotta get on the list for next year. We gotta get flown out there, bud.
Yeah, good luck with that. You can go. I don't think I'll make it across the pond, but yeah.
Come on, you don't want to go to California with me?
I think
18-hour
die.
flight.
I'm like dying already in like 27 degrees centigrade heat. I think we were like I was 86, and I don't think I would cope in
What do they
California.
do? They do it down in LA, right?
Yeah.
It's not that hot in LA. San
No.
Diego, you'd
Okay.
be hot. You could live
All
in
right.
LA.
That's
You'd be
fine.
all right. San Francisco is cold. So LA is like
Yeah.
nice
San
in the middle.
Francisco's the same as the UK, from what I've heard in terms of
Yeah,
weather.
it's cold, it's rainy, you'd be right at
Yeah.
home
Great.
there.
I'd love it there. Same as
LA
Seattle. I'd love it
is
there.
LA is not that bad, I don't think. I've never been there and
Okay.
had it been like hot. When I was there recently, it was like, oh, it's beautiful. Nice. Nice
Okay.
and
I
sunny.
could do that. Yeah.
No humidity. Anyway, so, thank you guys for joining us here on another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. If you want to write in with any of the Summer Game Fest announcements that you were excited about, maybe one that we didn't touch on, what were the games that you were the most excited about that are now on your wish list that you're dying, chomping at the bit to see more of or to get your grubby little mitts on and play? Because walking away from this week, I feel quite a bit that really caught my attention. I'm a little concerned by how many good games are coming out between now and 2024. I feel like we're gonna be
Yeah.
we're
And
gonna
I'm
be
going to play none
struggling to
of
keep
them.
up.
Gonna play absolutely none of them because I'm 16 hours into Diablo 4 and I've only just started Act 2. So I've got a ways to go with that game.
Oh boy,
And then
here
I'm
we
gonna go
go.
back to Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, just trying to play all the games that already came out this year is gonna be a challenge, let alone all
Yep.
the new ones. But anyway, make sure you write into us, of course, questions at flipscreen.games. Come and join the Discord and keep the conversation rolling between episodes. However you choose to get in touch, you can find links to it over at flipscreen.games. And of course, while you're over there, you can find links to all of our sister shows and more, including going and becoming a Patreon supporter. You could get the show early. You could get your name read on the air like all of our Patreon producers, or you could just throw us a couple bucks and help keeping the show running if you enjoy what we're doing here. But guess what? If there's no money for you, there's a bunch of links over on the website for a bunch of free ways you can get involved. So however you choose to show your love and support, thank you for being a member of the community. Thank you for tuning in for all the extra Summer Game Fest content. And thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.